Hello, my beautiful yellowbone, redbone, butter pecan, caramel, butterscotch, toffee, mocha, chocolate, cocoa exoticals. Welcome to the Pretty Girl Club. Welcome to the Exoticals United community. If you are new here, welcome. Here in the Exoticals United community, we support men and women from the following people groups: multiracials, biracials, multi-generationally mixed, and light-skinned golden people. Today I want to talk about monocultural versus multicultural exoticals and how these experiences affect your everyday life. Let's start out by looking up the definition of the word monocultural. Monocultural means a single homogeneous culture without diversity or dissension. That word homogeneous means alike or of the same kind. So monocultural means you've only been around a single culture where everyone is alike. On this channel, when I use that term, I'm referring to people who grew up in a monocultural African American community. Some people call it Blackistan for slang. However, I don't think the entire Black community is Blackistan. There are some positive aspects of Black culture, but this is the Exoticals United YouTube channel, where we focus on MLS people. And if you're a mixed person who grew up in a monocultural background, you're going to have a different experience. I've noticed a lot of MGM people grew up in a monocultural Black background, as well as the biracial people who grew up only being raised by their Black side. Are you monocultural? Ask yourself a few questions. Did you grow up mainly in a Black neighborhood, solely around Black identifying people? Have you dated mainly Black men or women? Did you grow up listening to mainly Black music and eating African American traditional foods like soul food? Did you grow up listening to Black media and watching Black movies and TV shows? Did you grow up or engage in a pro-Black background? Do you speak in African American vernacular English? The way that you speak is one of the biggest cultural identification factors, just so you know. Do you understand Black memes, inside jokes, and cultural references? Does your life experience relate to the average unambiguous Black person in America? Have you experienced a lot of one-dropping, Blackifying, or racial profiling? If so, it's because you are monocultural. There are some disadvantages of being monocultural, and those things are lack of connection to your non-Black identity, one-dropping yourself into monoracial Blackness, being afraid to admit that you're mixed race, being afraid to socialize in non-Black spaces, internalized anti-Blackness. The internalized anti-Blackness is something that was started by racist white people but has been perpetuated by the Black community. I've noticed that a lot of unambiguous monoracial Black people uphold colorism by upholding the paper bag test because they'll say things like, "You're not that light-skinned." Well, why are they saying that? They're saying that because they uphold the paper bag test. That is an extremely colorist test that was used to put the most white passing people on a pedestal while looking down on those with darker complexions. I've never in my life heard a non-Black person say, "You're not that light-skinned." The only person who would say that is someone who knows what the paper bag test is, and they uphold it. Here are a few examples of monocultural mixed women. Number 1, Amber Rose. Amber Rose is a mixed-race woman with a Creole background. She was in the documentary Light Girls, and she talked about how her monocultural African-American family viewed themselves as better than African Americans due to their Creole heritage. The colorism hierarchy is something that is heavily reinforced by monocultural people, and that includes monocultural MLS people, by the way. Amber Rose is better now. She's talked about embracing her multiracial background. However, she is still very much monocultural. She dates mainly unambiguous Black men and socializes in mainly Black spaces. Therefore, she is monocultural. The disadvantage of being monocultural is that when you're an MLS person, you will never fully fit in. So when Amber Rose walks into a room full of unambiguous Black women, she is not going to be embraced as one of them. The same goes for if she walks into a room full of monoracial white women or monoracial Asian women. The bottom line is that when you're mixed race, you're not just one thing. So your culture should not just be one thing. You are setting yourself up for a disadvantage if all you do is socialize in a monocultural space. This is where unambiguous monoracial Black people get upset and say that we are replacing them. Have you ever noticed that when they say we're replacing them, they're not usually talking about multicultural exoticals, they're usually talking about monocultural exoticals. These are women who mainly date Black men, make Black music, and market themselves as just Black, sometimes even denying their own ethnic backgrounds in order to fit in. Some other examples of monocultural women are Giselle and Robin from the Real Housewives of Potomac. Again, they both mainly date black men, socialize in black spaces, and they have black struggle love relationships. And they even go as far as shaming other mixed women for embracing both parts of their ethnic identities. The downside of being multiracial and monocultural is that you will always feel a need to prove your blackness. If you feel like you have to prove your blackness, this is a sign that you've been overexposed to that culture and you need to take a step back and remember that you're not just one thing. If you're going out of your way trying to prove how black you are, that's actually a sign of internalized self-hatred and being a follower. It's no different than trying to prove how white you are. It's self-hatred. You don't have to prove to others that you can pass for their race or culture by fitting some stereotype. This is why it's good to be multicultural, because you realize that the world is bigger than just one group of people. Now let's talk about multicultural exoticals. First, let's look up the definition of the word multicultural. Multicultural means relating to or constituting several cultural or ethnic groups within a society. Multicultural people can relate to several different ethnic groups instead of just one. So, do you have a multicultural identity? Are you multicultural? Ask yourself a few questions. Do you feel comfortable if you are the darkest person in the room? Do you feel comfortable if you are the lightest person in the room? Do you feel comfortable opening up to people from different ethnic backgrounds? Do you feel comfortable around people who don't look like you? Do you feel like you can be yourself around any group of people without having to speak in a different vernacular? For example, do you have the same voice regardless of who you're around? Meaning you don't talk more black around black people or more white around white people? Do you enjoy foods from other cultures on a consistent basis? Do you feel 100% comfortable dating outside of your race? Do you often take a deep interest in other ethnic groups? Were you raised in multiple different ethnic communities? Did you grow up celebrating different cultural holidays? Do people of other cultural backgrounds find you more approachable than your counterparts? Are you accepting of mixed race people of all skin tones and phenotypes? If you answered yes to more than half of these questions, it's because you are multicultural. Some examples of multicultural MLS people include Doja Cat, Zendaya, Zoe Saldana, Chili from TLC, Victoria Monet, and Ryan Destiny. To further explain my point, I'm going to go into detail with examples of monocultural MLS people versus multicultural MLS people. Christian Rock, or Krishan Rock, I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right, she's a mixed race woman who is monocultural. She engages primarily in African American culture, and you can tell because she tends to speak in African American vernacular English, which was obviously created by Black American people. Just so you guys know, the way that you speak is probably one of the biggest cultural identifiers that you can have. Okay, so Christian Rock, she also dresses in hip-hop clothing, and we know that hip-hop was obviously created by black people. She dates monocultural black men as well. Another example of a monocultural mixed person is the rapper Saweetie. Saweetie also speaks in African American vernacular English. She creates hip-hop music, in fact, she's a rapper, and she wears the clothing styles that were popularized by African American people, aka the hip-hop style. In fact, Saweetie's lyrics promote dating black men. So Saweetie is very monocultural. Obviously, both of these women are getting their exotical tax, so I'm not against either of them, but I just want you guys to have examples so that you know exactly what I mean when I use these terms. So just so you guys know, both monocultural and multicultural MLS people help exoticals, because the more exoticals that we have in Hollywood, the more exoticals we have in the music industry or in the acting industry, the better it makes us look. So to be completely honest, I don't really care if Saweetie wants to make rap music or if Christian Rock wants to do what she does. At the end of the day, these women are still getting their image out there, and they're still getting my image out there, and they're promoting my image. So as long as they are known for their beauty, that is helping my personal image. So for that reason, I will never be mad at them. And also, I want to make a disclaimer here. The Exoticals United YouTube channel is not perfect. I am not a political figure. I am not going to be perfect on this channel. I may mix up terminologies here and there, and that's because here in the Golden Sphere, we are still in the process of creating a movement. We are in the process of developing a language to describe our experiences. So, monocultural is a term that I didn't create, but I am coining that term, and I will be using it on this channel to describe those who have engaged only in one culture, primarily the African American culture. Another example of a monocultural woman is Giselle from The Real Housewives. She is a member of an African American sorority. That is a huge sign of being monocultural. She joined an entire black organization and went through the hazing and everything. She also primarily dates monocultural and monoracial, unambiguous black men. She even mentioned being attracted to men who have been to jail, and we all know that thugs and bad girls and bad bees are something that is heavily promoted in the African American culture. Not only that, but Giselle also speaks in African American vernacular English, which is a sign of being monocultural. Another monocultural mixed woman is B. Simone. B. Simone is an actress and comedian who speaks in a very thick African American accent. She also creates rap music, and once again, she dates unambiguous black men as well. She stays in black spaces like the Wild and Out show, and she's attracted to men like DaBaby. I'm not sure why she would choose him out of all the men in the world, but I digress. Another example of a monocultural woman, or someone who is at least trying to be monocultural, is Chloe Bailey. I've been very disappointed in Chloe Bailey lately. She's a light-skinned woman who heavily engages in African American culture. She often makes music with other black artists or monocultural artists. She wears her hair in Afrocentric hairstyles, and she loves singing and dancing in a very African American bad bee type of style. However, her sister Hallie is multicultural. That's right, you can be monoracial yet multicultural. And a person can learn to become more cultured. A good example of someone who is also monoracial yet multicultural is Tyra Banks. Tyra Banks, even though she has admixture, I still consider her to be monoracial. She is like over 80% black or somewhere around that mark, if I'm not mistaken. But Tyra Banks, she's multicultural. She doesn't have to stay in black spaces. In fact, when I think of Tyra's brand, I don't think of her constantly being in black spaces. I think of her creating her own space kind of in between both the black culture and the white culture. And she's always had kind of this international multicultural appeal, which is why she was such a successful supermodel. Anyway, so back to Chloe and Hallie. Hallie is multicultural. If you look at the difference between Chloe and Hallie, even though Hallie wears her hair in Afrocentric styles, Hallie does not stay in black spaces in the same way that Chloe does. Hallie sings in more of a music theater Broadway tone that is appealing to a non-black audience. In fact, Hallie sometimes has this opera music sound to her voice, which shows her cultural and musical influences. Not only that, but Hallie tends to stay more in the family-friendly, Disney-like spaces in comparison to her sister Chloe. One is not better than the other, and this is not meant to talk badly about black culture or to pedestalize non-blackness. I'm simply highlighting the personality differences between monocultural and multicultural exoticals, because when it comes to the exotical MLS community, we are moving differently depending on the cultures that we engage in. Hallie is an example of someone who transcended her monocultural background over time. Another person who transcended a monocultural background is the one and only Beyonce. Beyonce came from a very heavy African American monocultural influence. Beyonce stayed in black spaces when she first started in Hollywood. She was constantly wearing her hair in Afrocentric braids, acting primarily in black movies to get herself started, singing with this soulful, sultry tone. But as time went on, Beyonce seemed to realize that becoming multicultural would help her to have more of an international appeal. So that's what she did. She started singing music in every genre. She started to get formal vocal training so that the actual tone of her singing voice would be more universally appealing, because believe it or not, there is a correct and an incorrect way to sing. Beyonce also started collaborating in movies with more of a non-black audience, such as Austin Powers, and she began wearing her hair in looser waves to match her natural curl pattern as opposed to constantly wearing braids. A lot of people say that Beyonce is only successful because of colorism, but I actually have a different theory. I think that Beyonce is successful due to multiculturalism. Beyonce learned how to have a fluid identity. Kelly Rowland didn't. Beyonce has international appeal due to her multiculturalism. Kelly Rowland did not. I actually don't think that that Beyonce was just like so much more talented than Kelly Rowland. No, I think that Kelly Rowland can also sing, but I think that if I were to compare Beyonce and Kelly, Kelly is very monocultural, and she thought that staying only in black spaces would cause her to have the same international success as Beyonce, and it didn't. The bottom line is that multicultural people have more of a fluid identity and an international appeal than those who only engage in one culture their entire life. Imagine only listening to one type of music, only living in one type of community, only wearing one type of hairstyle, and only being around one group of people. That's boring. That's not very interesting. In fact, it can cause you to become closed-minded. Becoming more cultured and more familiar with different groups of people will actually help you to have an appeal to a wider audience, and it helps you to relate to others, and it also helps you with social climbing. I've never really talked about this concept on my channel before, but I think that a lot of success actually has to do with social climbing. That means knowing how to be in the right place at the right time, knowing who to rub shoulders with, knowing who to interact with, and who to network with. It's very difficult to do this if you're solely depending on a unicorn black man or a unicorn black woman to help you to get to where you need to go. No, if you want to be successful in this world, you have to know how to interact with black people, white people, Asian people, and everything under the sun. Are you monocultural? Don't worry. This channel was created for monocultural exoticals to embrace every part of themselves and begin to relate to people from other racial and ethnic backgrounds. And this is so we don't constantly feel ostracized by being thrown in and out of the black community. You're already multiracial, or you look like you are, so why not make your life more fulfilling by becoming multicultural? Now let's give some examples of multicultural MLS people. Willow Smith. Willow Smith is an MLS woman who is very multicultural. She dresses in different cultural styles, wears makeup from other cultures, and even sings music that has been influenced by different ethnic groups of people. That is a part of Willow's appeal. However, Willow still wears Afrocentric hairstyles and embraces her blackness. Therefore, she's multicultural because she can relate to several different ethnic groups. Multicultural people are neither Eurocentric nor Afrocentric. We know how to embrace the good parts of every ethnic group while also throwing out the bad parts of those groups. Another example of a multicultural MLS person is Christina Milian. She proudly embraces all sides of herself, and although she embraces her blackness, she makes it known that she is also a Latina. Therefore, she is multicultural. Another woman who's multicultural, believe it or not, Cardi B. She may be ratchet, but she is multicultural. There is a reason why people call Cardi B a Latina while calling Nicki Minaj black, despite them both having the same phenotype. Cardi B is bilingual, she makes both African American rap music and Latin American music, and she makes her cultural background known. Nicki Minaj was not like this when she first started. Now Nicki Minaj is better. I do see her embracing her Indian ancestry more, and I would say that Nicki is working towards becoming more multicultural. But I think where Nicki can mess up is sometimes she does speak against her own mixed race counterparts, such as the rapper Mulatto, and that is a very Blackistan way to do things. People who are multicultural don't go out of their way to make fun of the looks and phenotype of other people who are multicultural and multiracial. So this behavior tells me that even though Nicki Minaj is mixed race, she most likely does have an internal struggle of seeing herself as mono, whether that's monocultural or monoracial. Another example of a multicultured MLS person is Ryan Destiny. She is an exotical who is very open about her white grandmother and how she felt ashamed for being of a darker complexion yet having mixed ancestry and having a white grandmother. If you want to see the link to that interview, I can link it in the description below. But Ryan Destiny makes black music, yet I've also seen her in multicultural media multiple times, and she's very proud of her mixed background. Therefore, she is definitely multicultural. The same goes for Justine Skye. People tried to gaslight Justine Skye about being a darker-skinned mixed woman. Not only did Justine Skye make her DNA results public, but Justine Skye also talks about being a proud Jamaican. People tried to gaslight Justine and say that she can't say she's Jamaican if she wasn't born in Jamaica, and Justine quickly called out their hypocrisy. There are plenty of people who call themselves Mexican who weren't born in Mexico, Filipinos who weren't born in the Philippines, and Dominican when they weren't born in the Dominican Republic. So why is it suddenly a problem when Justine Skye talks about being Jamaican? Justine is a proud multicultural and mixed race exotical. So if you think that Justine can't call herself Jamaican, your colorism is showing, your anti-blackness is showing. So which one are you? Are you multicultural, monocultural, from a monocultural background and trying to become more multicultural? Let's get the discussion started in the comment section, and I will talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.